Michael. Welcome to the Ecom Crew podcast.
Hi, Mike.
It's good to have you on here. We were talking before we hit record. What are we going to do here? There's two Michaels on the podcast, but you're going to be Michael for today, and I'll be Mike, just to keep it simple. I appreciate you coming on and doing this. We're just for people that are out there listening. We're doing an Under the Hood episode today. This is one of our segments where we do a free hour of coaching and turn it into a podcast. If you're interested in doing something like this yourself, you can go to ecomcrew.com/underthehood and register. Again, it's 100% free. Turns it into great podcast content like the one we're going to have today. So whenever we do these segments, I'm sure, Michael, you've listened to this before. You know, I always like to ask the first question of, how did you get into e-commerce?
So first time I got on Amazon was summer of 2017. I was on a forum. Somebody was talking about how this thing called retail arbitrage, which I'd never really heard of, that you could just go to Walmart and find something on the clearance aisle and sell it. So I tried that out. Ended up selling something that Amazon was selling and lost my money because they immediately lowered the price. But eventually I turned that into wholesale and found some local products that did well. And so I've still got a side business selling on Amazon. But here about 3 months ago, I purchased discountcatholicproducts.com. And so that is now my full-time e-commerce career.
Excellent. So that's what I was trying to figure out what was behind you. I can see the ounce in the.
There we go.
but not the, there we go. So discountcatholicproducts.com. Awesome. I think that this is a great niche. I've been helping a friend who sells some magnets in this space, and it strikes off a lot of the things I always talk about as ways to be successful in e-commerce. People are obviously passionate about religion. We're not going to talk about religion today in any way, except the fact that that's your business. And it's the one thing that we struggle with when I was helping my friend is that Facebook seems to be really against targeting this type of stuff. So that was a challenge. But besides that, it kind of strikes off all the other items that I always talk about. So congrats on finding a cool business. How did you come across this? Is it like on Biz Buy Sell or Website Closer?
It was Quiet Light. So okay. Yeah, I'd been looking for about a year or so, not very seriously. And I had a couple of boxes I needed to check. One was I really wanted US-based suppliers. I'm also in the National Guard and I have a security clearance. And so traveling to China, sending purchase orders for $100,000 to China was just a non-starter for me. So that was one. I did want something off Amazon, or at least I had a significant off Amazon presence because I've run the risk there before. I know that game, and
yeah.
And I wanted a large email list because I've heard you talk for years about how effective that is. And this one came along, and it was in a niche that I was passionate about and knowledgeable about, and so just checked all the boxes and made an offer immediately. My wife and I watched the video the day we got the email, and I think we had a LOI submitted within about a week. So,
wow, excellent, congrats. I know it's kind of like when you go looking for buying a house. Like you kind of look at a whole bunch and kick the tires, and then when you walk in the front door, the one that's the one,
yeah,
you kind of know it. And I think it goes the same for buying a business. So, very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the dynamics. I mean, first of all, you said you bought it 3 months ago, so you're 3 months into this?
Yeah, so we closed at the end of July. I think we started, it was about a 6-month process. The SBA loan process is not, ended up losing the first lender and going to the second one, but we got it all closed. So, and then we had to move all the inventory from, 1,000 miles to get it. The seller had been operating out of their home. We were going to operate out of our garage. Landlord didn't really like that idea, so we ended up having to rent a space at the very last minute, but found a 800 square foot office that has a very flexible landlord, is letting us store stuff in some Christmas inventory in the front until he gets that rented. So,
oh, cool. That's always nice when you can find a cool situation like that.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe first things first is there's a lot of talk about buying and selling businesses these days. Let's spend just a couple minutes on the purchase price and the SBA process. We also used an SBA loan to close our deal. Our first lender fell through. The second lender about fell through 2 days before closing, which was a real fun experience.
Yes.
So we know that pain, but let's kind of go through what was the purchase price of the business?
So it was mid six figures. It was about a 3x multiple
Okay.
plus inventory. So, some of the inventory was older things that we basically, the seller was very reasonable. We went through a giant spreadsheet of the many, many thousands of SKUs and basically said, okay, these are at 50%, these are at 25%, these are at full price. And we just went line by line, and it took a very long
Got it.
time, but
Yeah, we did the same thing with color. We had these darn adventure books. It was called The Greatest Adventure that like just never sold. So those were a 0,
yeah.
and some other things that were not doing very well was a 25. I think that every e-commerce business ends up with this stuff. It's really just impossible not to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fair way to deal with it. At the time you go to sell the business, you're getting a bunch of cash, and it makes it more palatable to write that stuff off.
Yeah.
Okay, so mid six figures for the business. Like in percentage terms, what did you put down?
So we ended up having to put down 10% in cash, and then the lender wanted to see about another 10% in cash in reserve. So I just came back from a deployment overseas. So luckily, I've been able to save up quite a bit of money there.
Okay.
We have 6 children, so the government has been throwing money at us recently
Nice.
with all the stimulus money and child tax credits and everything. So between all of that, we were able to pull together. I pulled some money out of retirement, and we were able to get about a 10% down payment. The seller was willing to finance a small percentage as well, and that just helped the bank get it over the closing line. The first bank was a regional one that I'd worked with, and they just said, after about a month, it's going to take 2 months to underwrite this. And that just was not going to work for us. So reached out to my network, found a national lender, and they were able to close within about 45 days. It was a roller coaster.
That's reasonable. 45 days is actually very reasonable for
Yeah.
The SBA.
I had spent about a month or two writing a business plan, and my lender said it was a great business plan, better than the ones they'd see for multi-million-dollar companies, but it took a lot of hours. So
yeah, the business plan part was fun because we already knew our business plan, what we were going to do, and it was all just kind of fluff. But that's what they need to see. So,
it did help a little bit because it did help me think through some things of what are the growth opportunities? Okay, what does this industry really look like? Who are the competitors? And it did force me to do some of that research that I might have glossed over a little bit or just assumed that I knew. So I do have some ideas for growth, and that's kind of the big thing I want to talk about today. It's just mostly which of those ones to pursue with my limited bandwidth. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting about that. Let me just ask like a couple more questions on the deal structure because I think people find this stuff really interesting, including myself. So you said 10% down, the seller finance some as well.
Yeah.
How did you handle inventory? Was inventory cash up front as well on top of that?
So that was wrapped into the loan. Yes, we paid about a 3x multiple on the business on the trailing 12 seller's discretionary earnings, which Quiet Light listed it. Their numbers were fair. Didn't really see a need to argue too much on 1 or 2% here or there.
Yep.
And then the inventory, we probably came down 10 grand or something just with the discounts for various things that were selling slowly or just not selling at all. And so they did a small note, and the lender said it had to be at the same term, so it's actually a 10-year note. We plan to pay that back much faster.
Right.
And
what were the SBA interest rate?
So we got 5.5%. It would have been a little lower, but unfortunately they messed up some paperwork at the very end. So I said it could have got as low as 5.1%, but it really didn't make that big of a difference. I mean, the loan payment would have changed $50 a month or something.
Right.
So,
and still amazing terms. I mean, 10 years.
And with inflation right now, it's just
exactly.
As much as I'm debt averse, I really didn't want to. This is the only debt we have now. As much as I would like to pay it all off in a year or two, on the other hand, I know that right now with inflation the way it is, that money is far better spent buying more inventory than paying down a loan.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your payments in terms of like your monthly net is, let's say, $10,000,
Yeah.
let's just to use a round number,
It's
in
about
percentage terms,
3,500, 4 grand a month. So
in percentage terms of, I should probably have asked the question differently. If your net was 10,000 a month, like what would the payment be, or what's the percentage of,
about,
are you easily able to make the payment, from
yeah,
your net profit each month, basically your cash flow?
yeah, it more than cash flowed, and I'm paying myself a salary. This is my full-time, income now. So
Yeah. And this is why, I've been such a big advocate for buying businesses, cash flowing businesses, using an SBA loan. Again, we went through the process. It's a pain in the rear end, but like, it really is amazing. It's like I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, I've been in business a long time, like trying to get these loans at this term,
yeah,
at these terms, especially in a pre-inflationary period, as you were talking about. If there is hyperinflation coming, which we all kind of expect there is, or aggressive inflation, whatever word you want to use, your business enterprise value goes up in terms of the dollars, but like the loan stays the same. Same thing with real estate or other things you can leverage. And now's probably the time to get a little bit less debt adverse, and us in that category, like including myself, because it's really, and it leaves you the opportunity. Yes, you're on the hook. It's a personal guarantee. If the business completely implodes, it's a bad result, but there's a lot of safety net. I mean, this is a business that's been running for years. It's got history. It's people aren't going to get less religious at any time, I don't think. And if the business started struggling and got cut in half, you're still able to make your payments and you're paying off that debt, and you still have a business that's worth something at the end. So, I mean, I think that in terms of the bets you can make in life and in business, it's a relatively safe one.
yeah.
And something that I highly encourage. So congrats on all that. So let's kind of transition into, now you own this business. What have the first few months been like? Have you kept the wheels on the bus?
It was, yeah, I use that phrase a lot. It was drinking through the fire hose for the first month or so. We got a day or two of kind of training and transition with the seller, she was great, very helpful. I think we had the standard kind of 90 days of post-closing assistance, so many hours. And, the first month it was, hey, where is this? Let me take a picture of the shelf. Can you tell me where this item is? Because I can't find it on the shelf.
That's funny.
And yeah, there's several thousand products, so it gets
oh wow,
yeah,
1,000 products.
thousands,
Wow.
yes.
Thousands of products. Wow.
So
That's crazy.
yes. So that's part of it. But she's been very helpful. But it's just my wife and I at first, and so we were keeping the wheels on the bus for the first month or two. Definitely a lot better now. But it was definitely drinking from that fire hose for the first month or two, and just trying to keep orders going out the door, and couldn't really focus on any of the grand ideas I had of pre-closing of, oh, I'll be able to do this, I'll be able to improve this, I'll be able to make these changes. And it's just, no.
Yeah.
All I can do is order more inventory and just try to order more inventory. I feel like that's all I'm doing lately. So
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, similar situation, a little bit bigger business, which I think actually makes it easier in a lot of ways, because you can justify hiring people to help out with some of this stuff, right? I have someone on staff that does all the ordering, for instance, and so even though I was drinking from the fire hose, that was one thing I didn't have to worry about, because it's definitely a lot of work when you're having to do all the ordering.
yeah.
So how did that first few months go? Did the wheels fall off the bus? Or were you able to keep things intact, or was it a train wreck off the side of that mountain?
So it went all right. It was definitely survival mode for the first month or two, just trying to keep the wheels on the bus. Like you said, we were still unpacking inventory, had just moved things into the warehouse, couldn't find stuff on the shelves sometimes. My wife and I were both working in the business, and still, trying to take care of the kids. And all the grand ideas I had for growing the business, right off the bat, there was just no time for any of that stuff. So it was just getting orders shipped out, ordering more inventory, and figuring out what the heck we were doing. So
yeah, I can definitely relate to this. I gave myself like 8 to 12 weeks kind of going into it, knowing, we're buying this business, we're buying it based on trailing 12 months revenue. we also took on debt and investors and stuff. And so the last thing you want to do is see that go down in any way. So I was like, if we can just get through the first like 2 to 3 months, try not to think about anything new that we want to do, just keep the wheels on the bus. I feel like that's a really good goal and a good achievement. I think that people often underestimate and often don't give enough credit to how complex an e-commerce business can be. Even if you've been in e-commerce, I mean, I've been in e-commerce now for like 7 years. And so it wasn't like I was worried about how to log into Amazon or any of that. It's just, there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in an existing business. You have your existing customer list and like your policies and the way that things have been treated before, your existing vendor list, and then like all these different products that, in your case, you probably at least understand and know what to do with the products. I mean, there was a lot of technical, like hardware type stuff where like, would you use this screw or that screw or this piece of hardware or that piece of hardware? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, if I go to Home Depot, I just overspec it and get the one that like does 60 pounds more than I need to make sure it's not going to fall down. But in our world, that isn't the answer they want to hear. So, just learning all that, getting hit by that fire hose and absorbing it, I think is a good achievement. So it's good that you got there. I think that brings us to the point of like, really the main part of the call, right? Is what to do going forward, which I love talking about this stuff. So, turning more to the under the hood part of the segment, start asking questions, man. Let's see how we can help you out.
So just a little bit more background. So when I bought this business, it's 100% off Amazon. There was an Amazon account. It had not been used in years. That there was like $12 still sitting in there waiting to be dispersed for
nice.
for years. And all the products had long since gone out of stock. But there was a larger drop ship component than I realized. So we carry a couple thousand different SKUs in stock keeping units. And some of those are variants, different sizes, different colors, things like that. But there's a lot of larger products or less frequently sold products that were drop shipped. And that was another issue coming in there with all the supply chain issues. We had orders from as far back as February or March that were still waiting to be fulfilled. Somebody orders a statue. Yeah, they had ordered a statue and it had to be shipped from Italy and they were still waiting on it months later. So we had a lot of the customer service issues with that at the beginning. So it's probably about 20-25% of the business is drop ship and the rest is in stock.
Okay.
So I kind of came up with 5 different expansion ideas when I was going through the business plan, but I realized I probably only have the bandwidth to do 1 or maybe 2 of those. So that's where I was kind of hoping to get your advice and an outside view of which ones are the ones that make sense to focus on.
Okay.
So the first one is expanding onto Amazon. A lot of the products we sell are purchased from suppliers that there's a dozen other people purchasing from them, so we don't necessarily have any greater pricing power, and it's whoever's willing to accept the lowest margin. But I've definitely found some products already. We have some books that we can buy for $1 or $2 that are selling for $20 on Amazon.
Okay.
Not sustainable in the long run, but there are definitely some products we sell that I think could do well on Amazon, including some of the private label type things we have, the handful of products we've developed in-house. I'm a little leery of going the FBA route, especially at the beginning with the Christmas season, getting things checked in. But I don't really have any experience doing fulfilled by merchant and just figuring out the pricing and free shipping and which products to put in there and how much effort to put into that to potentially list hundreds of different products, that might only sell a handful a month each.
Let me, I guess maybe talk a little bit about Amazon before we go down, because I'm looking at you had kind of pre-submitted the list of 5 things, and I feel like we can I'll forget what I wanted to say about Amazon. So first and foremost, just be aware that books specifically, if it's already listed on Amazon as a book, et cetera, they do have a higher fee. They have a second final value fee, I think of like $2 or something in that range. We ran into this with Color It. And so just be aware that there are higher fees. There's a few different ways to approach this Amazon thing. It's like maybe it's in stages. Maybe it's you do right now what you don't want to do later. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that in business and in life. if you're in a position where you just want to make some extra cash and just kind of get the train rolling along, there's a lot that could be said for just hopping right on all the listings that already exist. In terms of things you can do with very little time, selling on an existing listing on Amazon is literally seconds. You go in, you type in the ASIN that already exists, it's in your account. You can decide if it's going to be fulfilled by merchant or fulfilled by Amazon, and you're done. And if it's FBA, then you do have to get the inventory in there. You're not the one creating the listing. You're not the one adding back-end keywords. You're not creating the imagery or the bullet points or any of that stuff that takes up all the time. You can be going really, really quickly. The disadvantages of this are, as you said, if there's multiple people selling it, and you're not going to ever have 100% of the pie. If it's stuff that does not have map pricing, minimum advertised price set by the manufacturer, then it can be a race to the bottom. It can be tough to scratch any coin together. But if people are adhering to map or adhering to some reasonable margin pricing, there could be a good opportunity there to just start unloading a bunch of products, into Amazon. Unloading is not the right word, but just sending stuff into Amazon and seeing how it goes. Again, super quick. I mean, we're talking, from zero to done one day. You can have, even though you don't even know how to use the Amazon account yet, you could be up and running with that in no time. We even have like a free course on Ecom Crew that shows you how to do that. And in our other FBA course, since you're doing the podcast with us, I can just give you that course for free. It's our beginners FBA course. I think it's a good way to learn how to deal with Amazon, because there's steps that you kind of are going to go through, because it can be somewhat complicated to start with. And so these steps would at least educate you on how to get inventory in Amazon, how to get, your own ASINs, FNSKUs on the product, and label everything and start shipping it into Amazon, seeing the sales happen, seeing the money come into your account, understanding how all that's working. I think that's not a bad thing.
So, I do have experience on Amazon. I've been running another FBA business for a few years. And that one is a reseller model, but I have created some of the listings for adding brand new products there.
Okay.
I guess I'm mostly concerned with, for instance, books. We have some books that we've got 10 sitting on a shelf, and it sells maybe 2 or 3 a year through our website. So I figure, well, if I put that one on Amazon as well, I'm not really taking any risk if I just do it fulfilled by merchant. If it sells, ship it out like anything else.
Yeah.
Some of it I'm just not really used to all the shipping settings, and am I gonna? I know Amazon gets a lot more particular about how quickly you ship things out, or if our inventory count is off, and somebody orders 6 off the website yesterday, they order 5 off Amazon tomorrow, and we say, oh, sorry, we only have 4 left in stock. Amazon doesn't like that answer very much. So.
No, it definitely is not the result you want to have. Obviously, with Amazon, they want you to ship things out the same day. And in terms of settings, there's a shipping settings page within your FBA settings, or your Amazon Seller Central account settings, that isn't that overwhelmingly complicated. You just want to make sure that you have everything set to 5 to 7 day shipping, and nothing that's in that 2 to 3 day window. That way you can ship things out first class. You always want to make sure you're using tracking when you do ship out, and make sure that you have the ability to get out quickly. There is software that can help with exactly what you're talking about, that will sync inventory that you have in stock and then update Shopify or whatever system you're using.
Yeah, that's another issue that I definitely want to bring up, is we're not on Shopify, and the platform we're on is rather old, and the inventory is just not not a good inventory tracking system. We're constantly having to deal with issues with that, and it makes reordering a very long, tedious process with lots of spreadsheets and lots of manual labor to figure out how much has something been selling, how much do we actually have in stock, how much should we reorder? And oh, by the way, is our cost of goods sold accurate in our software? Which I'm finding that it's not. So
I mean,
working with our bookkeeper on that, but
that might be one of the first places to start, just in terms of,
mm,
I know it's exciting to think about expansion and all these things, but
yeah,
one of the things I've learned the hard way from years of doing business and just jumping right into stuff, like you're just going to make whatever problems you have worse, right? So if you can fix, build your house, get a good foundation, spend another 3 months doing that. I mean, we're going through a pretty crazy part of the year anyway. This is probably not the time
yeah,
of the year to just turn the fire hose on even harder. So, we're recording this in early November, December, obviously just crazy times of the year. January feels like a good time. February feels like a good time to like start
yeah,
launching new products and trying new things. And maybe in the meantime, you figure out your inventory management system, potentially switch to Shopify if that's in the cards. I'm not necessarily advocating exactly for that, but getting on a platform where you're not constantly frustrated, and it makes all these things easier. What's going to happen is, I mean, if you have dreams of scaling the business from where it's at
mm-hmm,
to 5x from where it's at, those problems that you have, those underlying problems become more than a 5x problem. Like they're like a 25x problem, because it gets to the point where a human can't figure it out any longer.
yeah,
You just get frustrated, give up. The whole system kind of like falls apart and breaks down. And so it's better to kind of fix those things now. That's why when we took over the new business that we did switch to Shopify right away, and made a couple other changes to help us, with the way that we were doing business already, and making sure that it was going to be easier for us to keep the train on the tracks as we were trying to grow. And now that we're growing, nothing breaks down. We aren't having any system problems, and that's important.
yeah. That was definitely one of the things. So I had originally looked at switching to Shopify and had kind of planned that, okay, that definitely was not going to happen in the first 6 months. That's probably our business has kind of two peak seasons. We have Q4 like everybody else, Christmas time,
Right.
but we actually have a slightly larger seasonal peak in Q2 around
For
Easter.
Easter, yeah, I figured, yeah.
And so my original plan was after Christmas, start trying to do the Shopify transition, start building it out um, in the slower Q1, and then actually implement it probably June, July timeframe. Um,
That sounds about right. I think that when you're talking about hundred, or actually, I remember thousands of
Thousands.
SKUs,
Yeah.
this takes time.
Mhm.
We only had hundreds of SKUs, and it takes time. In the process, as we were switching from the old platform to Shopify, we were also taking new photography for all the products, adding new descriptions and more robust descriptions. What was there was basically like stock type photography
Yeah.
and descriptions. And in order to rank for this stuff, it just needs to be more robust. And so we took the time to take all new photography. We obviously also use those images for Amazon, and which is where the bulk of our business is, and also wrote a little bit better description. Now we're going to go back through and improve that even more, because now we're getting even more traction with the website, and just because Google loves the type of work that we've done, right? So it's really exploding in traffic, and so I think that you can do the same, but it's a massive undertaking. When you're talking about tens
Yeah.
of thousands of products, you're going to need to hire someone to help with that.
Hmm.
We've used the team in the Philippines to do that, and I actually see that's one of the questions you had on your list here.
Yeah,
So
we've actually got so we immediately hired someone. Unfortunately, she's moving out of state and just put in her 2 weeks notice.
mm,
So we've got another interview tomorrow for someone to basically be here in person doing the pick, pack, and ship, doing some of the customer service. Um, but that's pretty much a full-time job in of itself, just about. And so definitely looking at hiring someone remotely to help out with a lot of some of the bookkeeping things. Something I didn't really realize with drop shipping is you get an invoice from your supplier for every single order. And if you place 10 inventory orders a month, that's fine. You can handle that easily. When you get hundreds of drop ship orders a month and you get a separate invoice for every single one, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more stuff to keep track of, make sure they're all paid, make sure everything went out. We get about 1,000 orders a month total, so it's just a lot more things to keep track of. So definitely looking at hiring some remote to maybe help manage some of that stuff.
And there's usually things that can be done at that scale with the drop shippers to make it easier.
Hmm.
For instance, we just kept a credit card on file, so they just
Yeah,
dinged us every
they
time.
do that with most of them. So, or one of them, we've got some where they bill us every week. Another one bills us every month. But I really want to be able to see in our bookkeeping, how much are we spending on drop shipping? How much revenue is generated from there?
Hmm.
Is it really making sense? Is it half our shipping cost is from a quarter of our orders, and it's only generating a quarter of our revenue, but it's all this extra work and all this extra cost, and it's maybe not worth it for some things. So,
Yep, makes perfect sense.
so
Just real quick, did we solve the Amazon part? Because it's still kind of complex.
yeah, I think that's where I definitely looked at was go after the low hanging fruit of things like books or some of these products that are very easy. I did a couple of test runs the other day. Finally got our Amazon account all switched over. The previous seller is now no longer getting the text message from Amazon asking for the
Right,
password.
the OTP.
um, yes. So I think I got that all switched over and got the professional turned back on, and turned off all the old listings. So we're not trying to sell something that doesn't exist anymore. But I did just list a couple of books just to kind of get things tested out. So I'm probably just going to continue working through that and just get the low hanging fruit. We do have some private label products that I've done some keyword research. I think they'll do very well on Amazon. I found a fairly significant gap where it's getting 1,000, 2,000 searches a month for a product that there is zero on Amazon, and we manufacture it ourselves. But that's one where I really do want to take the time to get that professional photography,
Yeah.
get the very nice listing, take advantage of the honeymoon period. Um, that may just have to wait till after Christmas, though it sounds like.
I mean, it
Um,
isn't, we were talking about the Christmas season and all that. I mean, if you're going to try some FBA stuff out, like I know, yeah, it does take time to get things checked in right now, and it is a little bit
mhm.
more complicated. I mean, it just takes long to get things checked in right now. But
Yeah,
it's not going to. It's if you send stuff in this week, it's going to be checked in before the end of November. It'll be in
mhm.
before Black Friday. If you're going to UPS stuff in, it'll get checked in. And doing it FBA will actually have less aggravation for you than doing fulfilled by merchant. You don't have to worry about the shipping times and tracking numbers and getting them uploaded into Amazon and all the other things that can get
Yeah,
you in trouble. Like you send stuff in FBA, and they'll handle all of that, and it's going to sell faster, and you'll probably end up making more money because, like, if
yeah,
you calculate in what it costs to ship it in via UPS versus you doing individual shipments when it does actually get fulfilled, uh, it's probably more economical to do it FBA, and you can send in 4 or 5 boxes of stuff, whatever random crap, whatever it is, into Amazon in boxes UPS and test it out. I mean, the worst that can happen is you can recall it later and get it back at like 50 cents an item. But
yeah.
I don't know, just kind of thinking through it and talking about kind of your setup right now, it might be the better way to go. I think in terms of man hours and aggravation, it's actually easier to do FBA in this case.
Yeah, I've got my app for my other account, and I just look down there and see, oh, $200 in sales today, and I literally did nothing.
Right.
They came through, they were fulfilled. I have a 3PL that ships, half a pallet in every month or so, and it's much, much easier. But
If
so
you do
yeah,
pallet shipping right now, it probably will be delayed significantly. But if you just send it in via UPS,
yeah. I mean, the UPS guy stops by every day,
yep,
so it's pretty easy already to do that. So
that's how we're doing it right now. Like, I mean, we have a policy as of like mid October. We stopped doing pallets until December just to get stuff in quicker, and it's
mhm.
about the same price.
Okay. So looking at some of the other growth opportunities, I guess one of them that I didn't quite list, but it's kind of on here is really just that plugging all the leaks. I mean, we've got a sales funnel, but if they come to the website and it's an outdated picture or the description is 3 words or missing, all those things right there, it's less likely to rank, it's less likely to convert. Just spending the time to fix all that stuff on the back end and on the website. And maybe not all new photography because with thousands of items, that gets a little overwhelming. But and looking at are there outside services that can handle that for a reasonable price, or is it just not really cost effective? You were talking about, hey, I have 100 of these items that are similar. Take a photo of each one and send it back.
So I think the most economical way to handle this is to hire your own team.
Okay.
There is a few people that we recommend, and we don't recommend them. We usually save it for our premium members. But again, since you're on the podcast, I'll forward you to somebody that can help, and you can evaluate. They actually do it in the Philippines as well. And so if you want someone to just kind of do it, they can help with it. When you're talking about tens of thousands of items and trying to grow.
Well, it's only thousands. So.
Thousands. Okay, sorry, thousands of items.
Yeah.
Like it'll be millions of items by the time I get done.
So we actually have 12,000 items in our inventory, but a lot of that is stuff that, because the website's so old, there's things that have not been carried in stock in years, and there's a listing there, it's turned off, but it's still sitting in the database, and
Gotcha.
probably just needs to be deleted. But
okay.
It's about, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 items that we actively sell between all the variations and everything. So
okay. So yeah, I mean, this is a year's worth of work or whatever even for a large team to go through and do. And it's not like once it's done, you have nothing else to do for the team, right? There will be continued work for them to do. If you're going to start listing on Amazon, they're going to start creating Amazon listings. If you're going to start creating private label products, you're going to be doing that. If you are going to be adding content, which I highly recommend, I think there's tons of content in this space. They can help with all that. There's social media. So again, there's going to be plenty of work for them to do. And if you were to hire a team of 2 to 3 people that did nothing but, like, their full-time job is to get as many listings or SKUs, products on your website, whatever, re-optimized, they can just sit there and chug through that. You can send the products off to them in the Philippines. This is what we do. And we send them a box of stuff. One guy's a photographer, the graphic designer, photographer person. Then we have, the content writer, or like a customer service type person. And it's usually like a trio of those 3 people work so well together in harmony. I mean, it's amazing how well our team has been able to do this stuff at this point. And if you're paying $600 a month per person, it's $1,800 a month. Still, it's a significant cost. It adds up, no doubt about it. Once you add all their benefits and stuff in, it can be more like $2,100. But I challenge you to either hire someone in the U.S. to start doing this. You can even hire one person, really, or 2 to find a service that can start doing it as economical as that. They're going to charge you by the piece. And it, really, again, you're doing this at scale. You don't have 10 products that you're trying to get done. If you had 10 products, I would say hire an agency. I got the perfect person for you. They'll take care of it. At this scale, I think really getting your own team is the way to go. Pick a city in the Philippines, whether it's Manila, Davao, or Cebu, like one of the larger cities, and try to hire them so they're all together so they can physically work together when they need to. Most of the time they can work from home. You don't need to get an office or anything. They can go to a co-working space or something to go take the photography and collaborate together. But they can do a lot. It's you'll learn to batch things. This is the way that we've done it. Where they're taking pictures of 20 products at once, and that way the guy then goes back and does all the editing, and simultaneously while they're working on the imagery, someone else is writing the content. The CS person's like going through and doing all the, like, we kind of group CS, customer service, into like this bigger bucket of people they're also doing analytics and adding listings to the back end. And
there's a lot of things like that where I've gone through and I'll find that there's a field for entering back end keywords, and I'll go through there and I'm able to do some things. I've done a few batch things in Excel because I can export out parts of the database, make all the edits, copy and paste it all the way down. So I'm not opening a web page, making an edit, opening the next one, doing it 500 times, because we have several of our most popular product lines there will be a couple hundred of basically the exact same item. So you have a prayer card. It'll have one for St. Michael, one for St. John, one for St. all these different things. And so it adds up very quickly to hundreds and hundreds of items of that type, hundreds of this other type.
Makes sense. Which is good in a lot of ways, because then, in terms of training or learning curve for whoever ends up doing this stuff, it's not as steep, right? You're not, and the other thing that's actually kind of cool, again, not getting into religious stuff, and please don't persecute anybody that's listening, but the Philippines is actually a very Catholic country, which can be maybe used to your advantage as well.
We actually sent an order there recently. Got a got an order on the way that the customer was just inquiring about, because it said it made it to Manila a week and a half ago, and it's still waiting to be delivered. And hopefully it does, because it was a couple $100 product. So
it's a challenge getting things into the Philippines. We've learned our lesson the hard way there. Never ever send it USPS. Number one.
So I think we used Global Post on that one, which I think they do use USPS, and then I think the Filipino post office takes over once it gets there, which unfortunately UPS and FedEx were hundreds of dollars versus
DHL is probably your best option for a lot of these international things. You can set up a agreement with them or work with them. They have their international division, and a lot of people are using DHL internationally.
Okay. Yeah, I know we had some orders to Australia that the Postal Service stopped priority mail and first class mail to Australia last month, and we'd shipped out this small statue, and all of a sudden the price of shipping doubled overnight, because we had to send it priority mail express. So
got it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that the best approach here, if it was me in your shoes, again, it's trying to keep things in perspective, because we already have the team and we have a large organization. And I usually don't advocate for going and doing this, because you got to be a certain size before it makes sense. But I think that you're in that slam dunk kind of size. We talked about the numbers earlier. It seems like, you have room to hire some people, and you're going to get way more value. Again, it's going to be 4 people or 5 people to 1 in terms of costs from the U.S. versus in the Philippines, and you have just so much stuff to drudge through. I mean, this is a lot of work, and they're really good at it. I mean, our employees there are just absolutely amazing. They crush it, and I think you can build something similar there. That it just it'll take some time and some upfront work, just like anything else, but over time, I think it could be your secret sauce that you have the ability to get this much stuff done at scale at an economical price. And now that you're a team that can, next year and the year after, continue to do more cool things for you.
So I guess going down that a little bit more, do you have so at the time zones, does your team, do they work basically their local kind of 9 to 5, or is it, working on US time, which is obviously in the middle of the night there, and probably a much smaller pool of people that are willing to work from 8 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning locally, or whatever the hours may be?
You'd be shocked, actually, in terms of that last part. There are plenty of people that are willing to work the overnight shift. When I'm there, it's like as busy or busier in the evenings. People go into work. There's just a huge presence of call centers there for multinational type companies, conglomerates that are U.S. based, doing a lot of telephone work. So there's definitely a huge pool of people that are willing to do that. But I have a different philosophy. I really like to treat our people like I like to be treated, and I would never want to work that shift. It's miserable. You're away from your family. It's not natural for your sleep schedule, et cetera. And I believe that it's a global world, and that we're not. It's not always all about us, right? I mean, you want to, if you're trying to get the good out of this relationship, which is the fact that because it's a globalized world and $600 a month there is going to produce the same type of lifestyle for somebody as making $6,000 a month in the U.S. It's just currencies are different all around the world. It doesn't mean that you get to treat them like they're 1/10 of a human being, or some things I see people doing. It drives me crazy. And so make their quality of life as best that you can. And so we have them work local Filipino time. It's and we structure their hours. They're working 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I think is the window that they typically work. It's a little flexible in some cases, and that time works well for us. We're on the West Coast. I know you're you're not. I think
We're Mountain Time,
you're Mountain
so we're
Time.
just an hour
1
different.
hour difference. Okay, so
Yeah.
you can probably do the same. That same schedule, anything earlier really gets to be a little bit tough. 6 a.m. is a big difference compared to 7 a.m., just on the body
Yeah.
and everything. And what that does for us in terms of time zones, half the year we have our meetings at 3 p.m. Pacific time, and then the other half of the year they're at 4 p.m. Pacific time, depending on daylight savings, because they don't do daylight savings. So actually, starting
Good
next
for them.
week, yeah, exactly. Everything's
Yeah.
moving to 3 p.m. And so for you, it would be 1 hour difference. So you're going to be working a little bit later. I find myself, I get up later these days, and the bulk of my hours interacting with people are between 4 and 6, 7 p.m. Something in that range, which works okay. It gets a little bit inconvenient sometimes when we have people in town, or we're trying to do things for dinner and stuff like that. But pretty much every day I have a 4 and a 5 o'clock meeting with somebody on the team in the Philippines, and which will be a 3 and a 4 o'clock meeting here shortly. And the reality is that if you can't communicate everything you need to communicate with somebody in an hour or two a day, then you're probably doing something wrong. I mean, they should be doing work most of the day, right? And you should just leave them the hell alone.
Yeah.
And with any employee, and so it works great. We don't, we're not looking over people's shoulders. We want them to get their work done on their own, with autonomy. We have Slack, so if they want to ask questions, they can get a hold of us, and also Skype. If there is something, and I usually have it on, and so if they ask me something at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm not doing anything, just sitting there watching TV or something, I'll answer them. It's not a big deal. It's like it's on my phone. It makes a little noise, and I help them out. If they got, I don't want them to have to wait till the next day to get their question answered. But if I am busy, then I just ignore it. If I'm out at dinner or doing something with friends, then I don't answer it until I get home or the next day. And everybody kind of knows that, and that's how things have been working. And we've been doing this now for 5 years, and the time zone stuff works great. All of our weekly meetings, Monday, 3 or 4 p.m. Everyone's there. It's more than enough to communicate everything you need to communicate.
Okay. Yeah, I'd heard a few things where some people said they were trying, working with things where there was more interaction needed. And I can definitely see up at the front, the training, I might just have to work some later hours, which is fine. But
or you can ask them to compromise too. Maybe they need to get up at 6 or 5 for a few weeks. But again, I mean, I do everything I can always in anything in life to treat people like I like to be treated. So I mean, like I don't want to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. I don't want to be working from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That sounds awful. I want my boss to respect me and to give me creative liberties and value what I'm doing. And so we try to do all these things for our employees as well. So, and it works great. I mean, like I said, our team, I feel like, is our superpower. If there's one thing that we have at this point, I felt like at one point it was like the knowledge that we had, because we were at Amazon early, and I felt like we just kind of had an upper hand on all that. But everyone's caught up to us on that. But I feel like our team is really now the superpower that we have.
Yeah, and I do feel like kind of moving to the next thing, we do have a warehouse, and I know that a lot of people that we're competing against, if you're drop shipping something and the supplier sells it in a 10 pack, you have to sell it in a 10 pack. We have a warehouse, we can take that into stock and say, well, we're going to sell it as a single item. We can afford to do that because this person is drop shipping and can't. Or we can take, these two items and bundle them, or do something like that. So that's kind of one of the other areas I was looking at for growth, is more, creating kits and bundles and more, private label type things. Or some of the products we sell are branded, and at least in that space, it's a decent brand. It's knowledgeable, but a lot of things we sell are, nobody cares what the brand is. Nobody recognizes the brand. It's product A.
Yep.
That's all it is. And if you put it with something else, you can label it whatever you want, and nobody really cares. So we do have there's a brand, trademark brand. Can be working with an IP attorney to try and develop a new private label brand for some of our products. that would be a little bit, maybe a little higher end, so it doesn't have the word discount in it. And so, still sell those things, but it would be one of our kind of own private label brand. So, and right now, about 8% of what we sell is basically private label products that either we've created or we bundled together a few other things and done that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of this route. I mean, we bought a similar business, in terms of how it operates, ice wraps, right? I mean, it's in terms of like we were buying from a bunch of different manufacturers. Brand mattered in some cases, didn't matter in others. We had our own warehouse, able to kind of bundle things, learn the information from selling all those other products, and eventually now, fast forward 5 years later, everything is our own product. And so I think that I like that model. And the reason I do is just that you never know when one of these suppliers is going to be like, you know what, Michael, it's been great working with you, but sorry, and so you always want to mitigate that. And being able to like create your own packaging and have complete control of the supply chain, will allow you to eventually sell these products on Amazon as well without any competition. Like all the things we talked about, the concerns that we were talking about earlier with people already on these listings, et cetera, et cetera. If you have your own branded products and eventually you move this whole route, it helps the whole ecosystem grow. But again, this is a multi-year, like long-term thing. So as you're kind of planning for the future, this is this thing that you have in the back of your mind. Can we start expanding our private label stuff? Yeah, maybe you get a brand that doesn't have discount in that. I agree. This is the disadvantage to having like the
purchasing a business.
Well, no, not purchasing a business, just like having that name in the URL. I mean, it's great from one perspective, like people that are searching for Catholic products or whatever, organically, et cetera. Discount Catholic products. I mean, it's a great, fine brand name for a store, not a great brand name for a product business. And so this is like a thing that we struggle with like Color It, for instance, when we first started looking at what domain to buy. Like I wanted to buy like either coloring.com or like adultcoloring.com or something along those lines. I'm like, that's actually like a really crappy brand. You can't trademark it. It's not really a brand name. The same problem we have with tactical.com. It's a great URL for information in that space, but horrible brand name. So we had to come up with a brand name that's separate from it. But there's ways around that. I mean, you can come up with your own brand name and then you can sell it on discountcatholicproducts.com or have a
and that's what I started looking at, and so I do have a name. It's a one-word name.
Perfect.
That nothing on the trademark. I looked in the trademark database and there's no hits for it at all. So definitely going to go that route. The attorney who handled the business purchase is actually an IP attorney.
Perfect.
So
so my recommendation there would be like to get that logo designed, make your first product with that name on it, and then start that application process. It takes like 9 to 12 months to finally get a full trademark. These are the types of things that are important to, like, if you're thinking about what are things I should be doing now that just take time and there's nothing I can do to like speed that up. And this is like one of those things, right? And so it's good to plan these types of things way in advance. Don't get, snowed under with a bunch of, time. Just like come up with some random product, go to 99designs.com or something, get you a logo made, and kind of come up with like a real but kind of fake product so you can
I mean, I've already got the product. We've already got several products that are kind of unbranded right now that we could put this on there. It's
Perfect.
just then I start going down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, now I need to get GS1 barcodes because Amazon's moving in that direction. And well, do I get the 100 pack or do I get the 1,000? Because the price goes up considerably.
Right.
Well, now what about packaging design? And where do I find a packaging designer and get all these different things made? Because we're not having it manufactured in China; they're being made in the U.S.
Yep.
That whole ecosystem of, I've heard you talk about many times before. Hey, the factory can take care of a lot of that stuff for you. Unfortunately, that ecosystem just is a lot harder in the U.S. A lot of the B2B type things are, oh yeah, sure, we'll sell you 10,000 of this, we'll sell you 1,000 of that. It's like, well, what if I only need 50 or 100?
I know. Yeah.
My
recommendation
just finding them
would just be to, and that's like another maybe part two of this, like six
Yeah.
months from now or a year from now. And I'd love to do it. I love this, that you're talking up my alley. This is the stuff I love to nerd out about.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't worry about all that right now. Like you'll figure
Yeah.
that stuff out. What about packaging and barcodes and et cetera? Those are very valid questions and things you will need to worry about, but you don't need to worry about them now. You don't need any barcodes right now. You don't need any packaging right now. Just get the logo, put it on, something so you can take a picture of it and give it to your attorney so he can file for the trademark. That's going to take
Print it on a
9 to 12
sticker and
months.
do it.
Just get it done.
Okay.
And then by the time you're actually ready to start really selling that stuff, you'll be prepared. You'll have the trademark, which is important. And you can get GS1 barcodes in 10 minutes. And in your case, I probably would get the 1,000 pack to answer that question. We got 100 of them. Or actually, I think, how would that work? It was, we got I guess it's 99 of them, I think is what we got. Because it's not exactly, or maybe it is exactly 100. But we knew we weren't going to release that many products, for Color It specifically. And so 100 was good, but like in your case, you might want to get the 1,000. Like it's hard to go change later, and it actually, even though it is more expensive to get the 1,000, it'll be cheaper long term if you're going to launch.
Yeah, because like
products.
the one product we have, it's 4 different sizes, it's 7 different colors, so that single product alone has 32 SKUs.
Yeah, you need 1,000 for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the other growth areas we're looking at is kind of business to business. So we get a lot of orders from churches and schools and things like that, and they will typically place larger orders. If we have a individual buy a 25 pack of something, a church or a school might buy 100, 200, 800. It makes it difficult when it comes to keeping things in stock because we can't, if we carry 500 different prayer cards, you can just never tell when a church is going to come in and order 800 of the same one.
Yep.
And luckily with our dropship relationships, we're usually able to cover that. But I've started to do some segmentation, but we use Klaviyo. It's not well integrated with our system. We had to have the previous owner had to have a developer build that integration because it didn't exist. So it's not like Shopify where just things kind of work together. So trying to get that information and get that segmented and do all that stuff in Klaviyo. I know that's email flows I need to build. It's just one of those things that it just feels like there's never enough time to get to.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of these B2B type orders. I mean, a large portion of our business for this new business that we own is B2B stuff. These bulk things. We actually do carry in stock enough to handle almost all those orders, but we have fewer products, so we can do it. And the stuff's so cheap. A lot of our stuff is measured in like fractions of a penny when you talk about individual items or just pennies, and so we can carry huge amounts of them and be prepared for the big order that drops on us. But we have already done the Klaviyo stuff and segmenting and I mean, people that are buying the bulk stuff. Repetitive. We're even looking at hiring a part-time or full-time salesperson to reach out to these people and give them a little bit more TLC because what I found is that these types of customers are the highest value and the least problematic. They just the church is just like, I just need some freaking prayer cards, man. Like it isn't like an individual who's like, like there's a smudge on one of the cards, and my card's
we
got
just
a
had
little bent on
a customer.
the corner.
They arrived bent. The corner's bent.
The corner's
it's like,
bent.
yes, we'll send you some new ones.
The church isn't going to do that, right? And so, and if they do, it'll be like a legitimate thing. Something really actually happened, and a lot of times it'll just be like, just help me out on the next order, send it next time, or whatever, because we already have 1,000 of them here, or whatever it is. So, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for nurturing this stuff as much as possible. But again, there's just so much to do and only so much time. And
with our, with all the supplier relation, we have probably 3 or 4 of our, suppliers are the 80-20 rule. So 3 or 4, probably 80%. And then we've got another 10 or 15 that, might have a handful of products, might have 50 or 60. But we haven't carried a lot of the very, specific, okay, this is an institutional type product, like 100 pack of candles or, oil or, I mean, we can get just about anything. It's just, can we compete with those other companies that are focused specifically on that market. And we do have actually a local church, we have a relationship with, that's kind of said, hey, we want to use you because you're local, and sort of said, here's all the invoices from the competitor,
Can you beat it?
can you get these things for us? And there's a huge opportunity there because there's thousands of churches across the country, thousands of Catholic schools, and each one will have a different need. But it's just going down that route. That's kind of a fundamental shift in the business. Are we going to be only focused on those bulk things? And I do feel like that's one of our strengths. That's kind of how I've tried to portray the discount part is, well, you can get a discount when you buy in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
We offer almost all of our products in bulk. And that's where a lot of the variations come in. Is you can buy 1, you can buy 25, you can buy 50, you can buy 100, and you get progressively larger discounts for those larger orders.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the exact same thing on our website. Everything on our site has that volume pricing of some sort. It's 1, 5, 25, 50, 100, 1,000, depending on whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, it's been a great part of our business, and I highly advocate for at least having those pricing tiers there. People will eventually trickle through if you start adding content later and people are finding it that way. It's all just kind of random, right? And once you have one of these customers, they never go away, right? I mean, if you keep taking care of them, they're going to keep needing more prayer cards or whatever it is. Yeah. And they're just great customers. So lifetime value is super high. What we've also done is, like, nothing ever gets shown as out of stock on our site. So like we'll take the order and kind of beg for forgiveness later. If we don't have now, this is the exception.
Pretty much the same.
The exception, not the norm, right? Like, I don't think that's good. Like, to have to go through this with every single product all the time. But like, there is sometimes someone will order like 1 million pieces of something that we have, or hundreds of thousands of them, and we might keep 100,000 in stock, and they've ordered 250,000, let's say, and we just don't have it. If they were ordering 250,000, they probably don't need all of them like instantly. So it's like, hey, can we ship you 50,000 and get you the other 200,000 in a couple of weeks? And almost always that's okay. And these are people that will take your phone call, will answer your emails. They're professional, et cetera. And they're just looking to check the box and move on. They're just happy they have someone that's going to actually take care of them and get them what they need to like start whatever work they need to get done today. The rest of them, you can't put 250,000 screws into something in one day, right? You got to. It's going to take some time. So they're just happy to get the first 50,000 in this example. You can probably do similar things where someone orders 50,000 prayer cards, 5,000 probably will get them through Sunday.
Yes. And we do that. And luckily with our, the relationships we have with our vendors is a lot of times we can do that and say, we carried 100 of this, somebody just ordered 500, can you ship to them directly? It does get a little complicated when especially now, we're having a lot more things where our supplier says, oh, sorry, this is out of stock. Yeah. It's like, well, sometimes you got to go to the customer and say, well, we have this as a substitution, or sorry, I just got to refund your money and move on. So.
Yeah. But again, most people are understanding. People also understand the global supply chain stuff right now. Anyone who's ordering in that volume is usually realistic. Again, it's the whole 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the problems come from like the 20% of like the lowest value customers that you have.
Yes.
But you can't say no to them, and you can't be rude to them. But they're always the pain in the rear end. It's the person that orders like one colored pencil like a year that like for 50 cents that just. Oh yeah, and the lead's like a little bit soft, and I sharpened it. I need another one, and like freaking shipping's like $6 to get you this pencil. Like,
yes.
So yeah.
So you're bringing back some flashbacks already. So.
PTSD.
Yes. So another area we looked at was SEO, organic content, everything. There was a blog on the website. I shut it down. It was really not driving any traffic that I could see. It wasn't really integrated in the website. It was kind of like a subdomain WordPress site. It just wasn't really doing anything. But we've identified a few areas, some of our like category pages. I don't necessarily want to put, 2 pages of content on there, but having something that's a more detailed version of that would rank for some of those keywords that, are a large category where we have dozens or hundreds of products. So my wife is actually she's an English major, so she's a much
Perfect.
better writer than I. So she's going to be the one probably starting on some of that stuff, but I know that that's the long-term strategy. That's not going to, hopefully with our domain name being 18 years old, it will rank fairly quickly. But it's also, we have to have a developer basically upload it because we don't use WordPress. We don't really have access to do all those things. It's not just an easy content management system. So,
I mean, again, this kind of goes back to switching to Shopify and getting kind of some of
yeah,
these structural things done. I mean, your wife can start writing the content right now, and
yes,
don't hire a developer to get you to go on the Shopify. Spend the time doing that rather than like one blog post at a time, which sounds awful.
yes,
And then once you're on Shopify, you can post all the blog posts yourself. We've had a lot of luck with SEO over the years, and this is my background. I'm a big advocate of writing content. It depends on the niche. So anyone out there listening, always make sure you're in the right niche. You're writing about the right things. You have the right type of products, because this doesn't work for everything. But like for coloring, for instance, it worked incredibly well. It works really well for ice wraps as well. We rank for all kinds of stuff like best knee ice wrap and how to solve like back pain and all kinds of stuff. Above, like we rank above Healthline and WebMD for a lot of stuff, and we get quite a bit of a traffic and sell products from that. Same thing with tactical. We're working hard on ranking more there and getting more traffic there. Probably not a good approach for Wild Baby. Where you're trying to sell some stuffed animals. There's not really a great content strategy for SEO that's going to match up well to that. So we just don't do it. It just doesn't make sense. But for you, it makes a lot of sense. Like there's tons.
Yeah, there's
of stuff out there.
a lot of informational things. You can go super deep. I mean, you have entire books written on a single saint, and so it's like, well, trying to compress that down into a 1,000 words, 500 words, 2,000 words, something to, hey, here's all these different products we have that are associated with this thing or with this type of product. So I see a huge opportunity there, and we already do get a fair amount of organic traffic, but it's just it's with so many products, it's very hit or miss with the product descriptions, whereas some are 2 or 3 paragraphs long and lots of good information, and others are blank or 3 words. So
I mean, again, this is a long-term, as you said, long-term project, but I'd start writing the content and I'd save releasing it for when you're on Shopify or another platform. It might be BigCommerce. You decide it's better, or something that's an industry standard platform that is hosted that you can get. I would look at Klaviyo as an example of this. Like if Klaviyo supports it, it's probably one of the ones you should evaluate. It's like you want the industry standard stuff where like you're not hiring a developer to custom code Klaviyo in. That just doesn't work long term for anything.
No, and I can tell that Klaviyo will say, oh, you got 3 sales from this email. It's like, well, we put this product in the email. I saw 10 of those come through today. I know that they all came through from that email. It's just not registering
properly.
it. Yeah.
So I mean, these are the reasons why. And then you don't have to worry about having a developer. That's another thing that's like a stress point. Like if something goes wrong right now on your site and that guy doesn't respond, you're kind of up the creek. There's Shopify will handle most of this. And you'll never really need a developer in an emergency. Like we do use a developer from time to time to do special projects, but it's never come up where like, oh my gosh, something's down, or I got a problem and I can't solve it. I need a developer right now because Shopify's handling that stuff.
I mean, if I wanted to change, change out, hey, there's still like a Google Plus link in the footer. It's like that hasn't existed since the day it started.
Yep.
It was obsolete from day one, but it's like, well, but we don't have an Instagram, which our Instagram account is social media is not a huge push for us, but it's like, well, we should probably have a link to Instagram instead of Google Plus. It's like, how to pay a developer to go in there and change that stuff out. So
this is why I advocate even more for get yourself on Shopify or one of the.
Do you have any recommendations for someone to do that? Because I mean, that would probably include a total site redesign. I mean, when I looked through, I found a few things where it was like, oh, $500, $1,000 to do the transition from, the platform we're on to Shopify. It's like, oh, we can handle we have probably 100,000 customer records, albeit many of those are from 2012. and the customer has never come back, so probably don't need to keep those. But between thousands of products, tens of thousands of images, descriptions, we do want to keep those customer records and all that kind of stuff and transition a lot of that over. But do you have any recommendations for that, or you may have something you could send me offline afterwards?
I do. Yeah, I can give it to you offline. Again, we try to save those recommendations for our premium members. We always are worried about like announcing something like that on the podcast and overwhelming the resource that we found, because it's it can be a little bit much for them. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to. I have actually a really great recommendation for Shopify developer that we used and couldn't be happier. Well, I wish someone could give me a WordPress developer recommendation. That's one I'm still struggling with for 15 years straight. But Shopify developer, I got you covered.
Okay. All right. So last area looking at email marketing. I know we need to do it. Right now we have kind of an abandoned cart flow that's half broken. People check out and then say, hey, I purchased this 4 hours ago. Now I'm getting an abandoned cart email. Right. It's like, please disregard that. Please disregard the coupon code that, just said, oh, well, hey, now I can save more money off this. Right. It's like, we have weekly campaign emails that we send out that they do fairly well. I mean, we get a good response to those, and that's something the previous owner had done a lot of, where it's just sort of we feature a handful of products. We have, a short message, a couple of paragraphs about whatever topic. We did try something different in October, and we sent out an email every day. It was the month of the rosary, and there's 20 different mysteries. So we worked out 20 different days. And I can't tell exactly if that was it, but October was up 50% year over year.
Probably had a lot to do with it.
And I strongly suspect that having an email hit people's inboxes Monday through Friday every day for a month, even if they didn't click through the email, just brought them top of mind where maybe they were searching or did something, because August and September were flat year over year. And then we had this huge jump in October, which is typically one of our slowest months, and it beat last December. So cool. I know that it's working. I just trying to figure out how to set up those different flows and things with so many different products. Hey, you bought product A, buy product B. It's a lot harder when you're just dealing with this scale of different things.
So my recommendation would be to either just turn off the abandoned cart stuff right now to stop embarrassing yourself. Because you don't.
I shut it down to just one email, and there's no discount code, and so it's just like, please disregard this if you already checked out.
Yeah, perfect. And because again, I think if your objective is to switch to Shopify, you don't want to go you got to pick what you're going to pay a developer to triage in between now and when you switch. Once you switch, Klaviyo interface with Shopify is completely seamless. I mean, it works wonderfully. So then you can set up your abandoned cart flows and your welcome series and all that. I would continue to send the weekly campaign emails if they're working and you're getting good open rates and interaction. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're about 25% open rate. So
and that's great. Yeah, so I would keep doing that. Don't stop doing that. And once you switch to Shopify, and again, the integration's tight, you can go through, and maybe this is even something that you can have someone in the Philippines team do eventually, where you start looking at data of like people that bought this but they didn't buy that. I had a whole podcast episode about this at some point, probably in the first 100 episodes when we figured this out for color. We're like, oh, you bought Mandalas version 1. A couple of weeks later, like, here's version 2. You bought colored pencils. Like, well, you're very likely to want gel pens or markers because they're mediums, the color width. And so, my gosh, did this work really well. And you can interface that as a custom audience over to Facebook and run very specific Facebook ads. This stuff works incredibly well, but I would hold off on that until you have your Shopify store up and running. This way, you or someone on your staff can go set all this up in Klaviyo versus having to pay a developer to go do it. And if you pay a developer to go do it now, then it's all going to break when you do switch over to Shopify. You have to recreate it, and so it doesn't make sense in my mind to do it now.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we do have a welcome flow that is okay. That was one of those things like, oh, we're going to update this and put it in our voice and everything, but it's just been one of those things that it's is that really where I want to spend my time? It seems to still be working all right. We do have one or two post-purchase for some specific products that, hey, you bought this, we have this nice upsell private label product that does seem to be working pretty well. But all this segmentation, all the different things I want to do, it's hard to find the time to do through that, go through all that. And I've only played around enough in Klaviyo, okay, I can send out the campaign email, copy and paste from the last one, change out the content, and rinse and repeat. So, okay. So I guess after all this, it sounds like, we should probably look towards switching to Shopify maybe sooner rather than later, at least start making that transition
I think so.
sooner, because a lot of these other things are going to be much easier without all the headaches. I mean, I spend literally hours and hours pouring through spreadsheets, trying to pull reports to figure out how many of this variant of this thing did I sell in the last year? How many should I reorder for this next time?
Yeah. And so either Shopify
and do that
will
for
help
thousands
you with
of
that
products
directly, or you can get software that interfaces with Shopify that will help you with that. And
yes,
they're the 800-pound gorilla. Everyone's writing apps for Shopify, and so everything exists there first, and then it expands. So while it might not give you the absolute best bang for your buck today in terms of is it going to increase revenue or revolutionize your business overnight? Probably not. But again, it lays that foundation to let you go to that next place.
Okay. And the developer you've talked about, they can handle all the, okay, Google is indexing this URL for this product. This is what they had. Now in Shopify, it's going to be a completely different URL structure, and it's still going to carry over.
Yeah, it's called a 301 redirect, and they'll probably ask you to help them with that. They're not going to, you're going to have to map that all out for them, which is exactly how we did it. It's okay, this is the old page. This is going to be the new page. So you're going to have your Shopify store created with all of the stuff over there first. Now you have your old site, and you're going to say, okay, well, someone's going to go through. It's a big task, especially for this many
we
products.
Have 15,000 pages indexed.
I mean, someone's going to go through one at a time and map that out. Again, this is where you hire someone in the Philippines to do it. They did it for me. I showed them what to do, the first 10 of them, and then they went and did all the other 900 and something pages. But every one of them has to be mapped somewhere. Otherwise, you will break all of your SEO. Some of that, you might go from 15,000 pages to 13,000 pages. 2,000 pages disappear. You got to have a place to send them. You got to pick a way you're going to handle that. So, so they're going to need your help with that, but they'll walk you through how to deal with that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I've got some of my my projects here for the next few months. Awesome. I think my wife and I are going to we're trying to implement traction in the US a little bit. So just baby steps now, trying to do a quarterly planning meeting and do an annual planning meeting. So
cool. We should do a follow-up in 6 or 12 months, do a part 2. Wish you the best of luck, man. I think it's a great business, and man, it should be good for you.
All right. Well, I appreciate everything you've done. I've been listening since it was you and Grant. So
nice.
Background episode 100 or so.
I
can't remember exactly when I found you, but it was probably around that, summer of 2017 when I first started selling on Amazon. So appreciate all the value you've provided, and probably need to sign up for premium here next quarter. So
cool. We'd love to have you, and good luck on guard duty. Thank you for your service. And take
gotta
care, man.
shave this off tomorrow. So.
Nice.
And do a 12-mile ruck march.
There you go. Be good, my friend. I got to run.
All right. Thanks, Mike.